Good afternoon. Can you hear? ऐकू येते का? Okay. So we had started with Azolla. This Azolla is a symbiotic organism, with symbiotic bacterium, which is used to fix atmospheric nitrogen, and mainly Azolla, it is used in rice for nitrogen fixation in rice plantation. The leaves of this Azolla, असा दिसतो तुमचा Azolla बघा. Can you see how it looks? It belongs to kingdom Plantae, division Pteridophyta, order Salvinales, and it looks like this. Yes? Okay. So actually it is a sort of fern, free floating fern. Fern सारखेच त्याची छोटे छोटे पानं असतात. These leaves of Azolla, they contain 4 to 5% nitrogen. If we take the dry weight, they will contain 4 to 5% nitrogen, and wet weight basis 0.2 to 0.4% nitrogen. This nitrogen can decompose very fast, and the plants get this nitrogen. If there is an association between Azolla and Anabaena, it's an algae, then algae and fern association. It provides 1.1 kilograms nitrogen per hectare per day. And if we cultivate Azolla, then this Azolla can provide 20 to 40 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare to a rice crop. And this it can provide for 20 to 25 days. After that, again you will have to add that Azolla. That is why Azolla is used as a biofertilizer. In China, it is used. In Vietnam, it is used. In Thailand, Philippines. In these countries, it is most commonly used. Another benefit of this Azolla biofertilizer is that it has tolerance to metals. So it can tolerate, or it can be used in areas which are polluted with heavy metals. So there it will be very useful, and because of its metal tolerance, it can be still it can still provide the nitrogen to the plants even if the soil is polluted with heavy metals. So this Azolla, it appears like a green mat on the surface of water. आणि Azolla आणि Anabaenaचं, if there is a symbiotic association between cyanobacteria, Anabaena and Azoli, then this symbiotic association provides a lot of nitrogen, and the nitrogen fixed is around 25 kilograms per hectare. So this Azolla will serve as a very good green manure for 2 to 3 weeks. So the rice crops which are flooded, or you know that in rice a lot of water is there, and totally lots in that water the rice plantation is there. So if you provide Azolla to this rice or paddy, crops, it will provide a lot of nitrogen. Dry Azolla flakes. Now you can just harvest Azolla, dry it, and those flakes of dry Azolla flakes of Azolla, they can also be used as a feed for poultry. And the green Azolla also act as a food for fish. So it has many uses. It is used in as a biofertilizer. It is when it is dried, it is used as a poultry feed. When it is green, it can also be used for fish, and it is a mosquito repellent. It is used in the preparation of salads, and it can keep the heavy metals far off from the crop plants. So crop plants will not be damaged in presence of those heavy metals. So this is how the ponds of Azolla are made. अशा पद्धतीने ते पॉन्ड्स बनवतात. तिथे मग अझोलाची ती ग्रीन मॅट, हिरवीगार अशी मॅट तयार होते, and that is actually harvested. You can see it in a bigger image. So this is an Azolla pond where the whole pond is covered with a green mat of Azolla, and this mat, it will be harvested as and when required. So this is how it looks. This is the pond. Azolla biofertilizer is very, very good for rice production. Next, the nitrogen content in Azolla is almost 5%. Rest of the minerals are potassium, calcium, magnesium, manganese, iron. Some sugar, starch, and chlorophyll is also present. What are the requirements for cultivation of Azolla? So the first important requirement is presence of fresh water. So 10 to 25 centimeter layer of fresh water current is necessary for multiplication of Azolla. The temperature requirement is almost 20 to 32 degrees, and optimum temperature is 25 to 30 degrees. Too much light is not required for cultivation of Azolla. It can also grow in the partial shade. It requires a lot of humidity. 85 to 90% humidity is required. The pH of the soil where Azolla is grown should not be alkaline. It should be almost acidic pH 5.2 to 5.8. uh, Nutritional requirement of Azolla, as it is able to fix its own nitrogen. It's a fern which can fix its own nitrogen. It only requires phosphorus. So provision of nitrogenous or phosphorus fertilizers, nitrogen त्याला स्वतःकडून मिळतो आणि phosphorus तो आपण provide करू शकतो. So that will help in the growth of Azolla. Growing of Azolla is of two types, is done by two types, in situ and ex situ. In situ means when there is a standing crop of Azolla. स्टँडिंग क्रॉप अझोलाचा असेल त्याच्यातच तुम्ही ते फर्टिलायझर प्रोव्हाइड करू शकतात, अझोलाला तिथे प्रोव्हाइड करू शकतात. आणि X-C2 म्हणजे खूप सारं पाणी जिथे गोळा झालेलं असेल. So there is one more method, that if you see some area where a lot of water has accumulated, then you can place a plastic over there, and then you can cultivate Azolla. You can just provide Azolla, and then that Azolla will grow in that pot. Steps for Azolla culture. First one is selection of pond culture, pond size. Then you have to have a properly constructed pond. Then maintenance of that pond is also very essential. You have to provide the nutritional content in that pond. You have to harvest Azolla from time to time, as and when required. कारण खूप सारी जर ग्रोथ झाली तर मग तरी पण प्रॉब्लेम येऊ शकतो. म्हणून अजोला हार्वेस्ट झाला पाहिजे. अँड यू हॅव टू कॅल्क्युलेट द यील्ड ऑफ अजोला, की इतके दिवस त्याला ग्रो करून तुम्हाला किती प्रोडक्शन अजोलाचं मिळालं. अजोला प्रोडक्शन इज गुड इवन इन नर्सरी पॉट्स. छोट्या छोट्या पॉट्समध्ये तुम्ही अजोला ग्रो करू शकता, किंवा तुम्ही डायरेक्ट पॅडीचे फील्ड्स असतात, राईसचे फील्ड्स, तिथे तुम्हाला माहिती असेल भाताची शेती असेल, तिथे पाणी भरपूर असतं, तर डायरेक्टली तुम्ही तिथे अजोला टाकलं तर मग भाताची शेती पण चांगली होईल आणि अजोला पण तिला प्रोव्हाइड होईल. सो 10% एरिया ऑफ द पॅडी फील्ड, जिथे भाताचं शेत असेल त्याचं 10% एरिया तुम्ही बाजूला काढून टाकायचं आणि तिथे तुम्ही अजोलाला कल्टिवेट करायचं आणि तेच अजोला तुम्ही त्या भाताच्या शेतीत टाकू शकता. सो दॅट यू कॅन डू. The land should be puddled and leveled so that the standing water is uniform. एकदम प्रॉपरली युनिफॉर्म लेयर तुम्हाला पाण्याचा त्याच्यात असलं पाहिजे. सो टू हॅव अ युनिफॉर्म लेयर ऑफ वॉटर यू शुड हॅव अ bottom which is very plain, and then in that you will add the standing water. Azolla inoculum is sprinkled in the pot and 45 kg of superphosphate per acre is added. So in that water you will add superphosphate 45 kg, and then slowly this Azolla inoculum which has been sprinkled will cultivate, grow, and this land which is used for the cultivation of Azolla is not wasted, because it can be broadcasted in transplanted paddy crop. 4 दिवस ट्रान्सप्लांटेशन करून तुम्ही परत ते प्लॉटला रियूज करू शकता. इवन द वॉटर बॉडीज, डिचेस इन close by area can be used for Azolla production. It is not necessary that you should have a definite pond. Even if there are some ditches of water or water bodies, you can just place a polythene over there. तिथे तुम्हाला त्याच्यामध्ये ब्ल्यू कलरचं पॉलिथिन दिसते, ते पॉलिथिन तुम्ही खाली टाकून द्यायचं आणि त्याच्यात मग तुम्ही यू कॅन ॲड द inoculum of Azolla. The Azolla cultivated for fish feed is grown in situ in the pond. Once the mat of Azolla is formed, then it is released slowly to the pond by lifting the rope. So वरती त्याला उचलून घेतलं जातं. सेटिंग अप ऑफ अझोला फॉडर प्लॉट डज नॉट रिक्वायर एनी स्पेशल नॉलेज. साधं सुधे फार्मर्स सुद्धा त्याला इझिली हँडल करू शकतात. इवन यू कॅन मेक इट इफ यू हॅव अ प्लेस, ओपन एरिया इन युअर और अ गार्डन. गार्डनच्या एका कोपऱ्याला तुम्ही अशा विटा लावून छोटासा पॉन्ड तयार करू शकतात. अँड देअर यू कॅन ॲड द वॉटर, allow the water to stand, and then you can add the Azolla. Polythene sheet can be spread over the bed so that you have a specific layer of standing water. 10 centimeters a layer paije, and then this pit should be 0.2 meters deep. 10 centimeter water layer should be there, and then you add the culture of Azolla, or you can sprinkle the culture of Azolla आणि त्याला ग्रो होऊ द्यायचं. आणि नंतर either you can use it wet only, green fodder, it can be used as a green fodder, or you can dry it out, and the dried part is also used as a fodder for poultry. So the bed size which is used normally is 2.5 meter by 1.5 meter. You have to add almost 15 kg of fine sieved soil. बारीक माती तुम्ही त्याच्यात गाळून व्यवस्थित टाकायची आहे, 15 किलो. and that will provide the nutrient to the Azolla plant. You add 5 kg of pre-decomposed cow dung, शेण त्याच्यात टाकायचं, and that will provide the carbon requirement of Azolla. Nearly 40 kg of nutrient mix, that is 10 kg rock phosphate, 1.5 kg magnesium salt, and 500 grams of potash. They are then added to the Azolla bed. तुम्ही काही मायक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स पण त्याच्यात ऍड करू शकता. And then you add water to make a layer of 10 centimeter. Production of Azolla scientifically and on a continuous basis, it requires cement concrete tanks. But even you can do it in your on the in one part of your garden. And actually, which is the thing that is cultivation of Azolla scientifically is done in 2 meter long, 1 meter wide, and 0.5 meter deep water tank. You can construct many tanks close by and connect those tanks with a pipe so that you can provide that 10 centimeter layer of water. You add cow dung 1 to 1.5 kg per square meter of the tank. एका स्क्वेअर मीटरच्या हिशोबाने 1 किलो, तर किती स्क्वेअर मीटर आहे ते त्याचा हिशोब करून जवळजवळ 2 ते 3 किलो तुम्हाला ते टाकावं लागेल. Then you can add superphosphate at 5 grams per square centimeter, and then you can fill the tank with water 10 to 15 centimeter. सगळे soil particles खाली settle down झाले पाहिजे. You make a fresh Azolla inoculum by adding 2 grams of carbofuran, and then whatever foam is formed, that foam should be as a phase तयार होतं, तर ते phase काढून टाकायचं, because it will affect the growth of the roots of Azolla, and also it will not allow the Azolla leaves to flourish properly. So allow the tank to be settled down overnight, and then on the next day you can spread 200 grams of the Azolla inoculum on the surface. So nearly 2 weeks are required to form a mat of Azolla, and you can use this. You have to maintain the water level up to 10 centimeters properly, because if water evaporates, the water will go down, and that is why to maintain the water level, you have to check it properly. Too much light is not required, so sometimes shade is made with the help of coconut leaves. वरती नारळाचे पानं असे पसरून दिले जातात, आणि dew formation is also prevented because of that in winter. We have So care should be taken that the entire bed or the pond is covered properly. Normally 10 kg of Azolla is given after 7 days. After every 7 days 10 kg is harvested. But initial 7 days you are not supposed to harvest the Azolla leaves or Azolla fern. फक्त वॉटर लेवल प्रॉपरली मेंटेन करायचं, आणि 7 दिवसानंतर तुम्ही मग 1-1 किलो किंवा 1.5-1.5 किलो असे रोज हार्वेस्ट करू शकता. You can harvest this Azolla in plastic trays on which the sieve गाळणी ठेवलेली असेल त्या प्लास्टिक ट्रेस मध्ये तुम्ही त्याला टाकायचं, म्हणजे पाणी परत गळून जाईल त्याच्यातनं आणि वरती फक्त Azolla राहील. You have to wash these Azolla leaves 2 to 3 times, because it has the smell of cow dung. We are adding cow dung in the pond, so that is why it will have that smell of cow dung. If you wash it, it can be smell free. This harvested Azolla is mixed with your commercial feed, whatever you are applying to the plants. That feed बरोबर त्याला 1:1 रेशिओ मध्ये मिक्स केलं जातं. And whatever that cow dung part is removed after harvesting Azolla, at the bottom that cow dung part will be there, so that can also be added as manure. So you can mix that cow dung, then soil, water, and after 7 days each, you can add it. After every 60 days, the soil has to be removed from that pond or the bed, and another 15 kg fresh soil has to be added. So you cannot use the same soil again and again. You remove some soil and then add 15 kg soil. So the fresh soil will provide fresh nutrients, and you have to add the fresh inoculum of Azulla in the same pot. You can repeat this procedure for 6 months again and again, and that is how you can harvest after every फर्स्ट 7 वीक 7 डेज सोडलं तर मग नंतरचे 7 दिवसापासून तुम्ही 1-1 दीड त्याच्यातनं हार्वेस्ट करू शकता. Now this role of Azulla is it grows under controlled conditions, so it acts as a very good manure, green manure for Kharif as well as Rabi crops. It has the ability to fix carbon dioxide as well as nitrogen, and it will provide carbohydrates and ammonia to the plants. The oxygen released during the photosynthesis helps in the respiration of root system of the crops as well as soil microorganisms, because it is Azolla is green, so it will carry out photosynthesis even when it is applied in the plant. So whatever oxygen will be released, which will be provided, will be good for the soil organisms, oxygenic soil organisms. It can also solubilize heavy metals like zinc, iron, manganese, and it can convert them in a form which will be useful for the dyes. Then it can also avoid the growth of weeds. जे जंगली प्लांट्स आहे ज्याला चारा निटेला असं आपण म्हणतो, तर ते चारा निटेलाला तो ग्रो होऊ देत नाही. सहसा भाताच्या शेतीत हा चारा वगैरे ग्रो होत असतो, तर तो त्याला सुद्धा तो अजोला सप्रेस करू शकतो. It also provides some plant growth regulators, vitamins which will support the growth of the plants. So it increases the yield of the crop, and also it helps in increasing the efficiency of utilization of chemical fertilizers. बरोबर, so chemical fertilizers बरोबर तुम्ही अजोलाला टाकलं तर chemical fertilizers ची absorption ची efficiency सुद्धा वाढायला लागते. It reduces the rate of evaporation, कारण भाताच्या शेतात खूप पाणी लागतं. पाणी जर इव्हॅपरेट होऊन गेलं तर मग ती शेती नीट होणार नाही. नेक्स्ट इज नॉन सिम्बायोटिक नायट्रोजन फिक्सिंग bacteria, that is Azospirillum. So this Azospirillum was first isolated by Beijering in Brazil, and from the roots of Paspalum it was isolated, and it is known as Azotobacter paspali. Daubernier and Day, they showed that आधी तो अझोटोबॅक्टर पासपाली नाव दिलं गेलं, मग अझोस्पिरिलम दिलं गेलं, स्पिरिलम लिपोफेरम पण त्याचं नाव आहे. आणि when it was first found, it was labeled as Spirillum lipoferum. Then it was found in associative symbiosis, that is, it could fix nitrogen in plants, and then it was labeled as Azospirillum. It's aerobic, microaerophilic, motile, gram-negative organism, non-spore forming spiral bacterium. It inhabits, or it is present in the roots of the plants, inside and outside the roots of the plants. It requires very less oxygen, so it grows on semi-solid malate medium. So Azotobacter bracillens, Azospirillum bracillens, Azospirillum lipoferum, Azospirillum amazonensis, and Halo preferens, Ircans, Dauberineri, Largi mobilis. These are the various species of Azospirillum. So if you see the growth of Azospirillum on the malate medium, it looks whitish on this malate medium. They are slightly curved rods, 1 millimeter diameter. They can accumulate PHB. They are gram negative. They form white pellicles on the surface of nitrogen-free BTB medium. They are chemoheterotropic. Arabinose, gluconate, fructose, glucose, sucrose, pectin. They can utilize these sugars. They can fix nitrogen in the form of into ammonia, nitrate, etc. The respiratory system is aerobic or microaerophilic. So nitrogen free bromothymol blue medium is normally used. The blue colors are these two medium. And doubling time is 1 hour in ammonia containing medium and 5.5 to 7 hours in malate containing semi-solid medium. So malate medium मध्ये तो 5 ते 7 तासात ग्रो होऊन जातो आणि अमोनिया मीडियम मध्ये 1 तासात ग्रो होतो. So it can produce various substances, plant growth promoting substances, which can help the growth of the plants. It has indole acetic acid oxidase activity. So it will help in uptake of water, development of the roots, as well as in the growth of the crops. It can compete with pathogenic organisms in the soil, and that is why pathogens cannot attack the soil. So it is also helping in protection or as a biocontrol agent to protect the crops from plant pathogens. It produces amino acids and polyamines. It also provides protons, certain protons and organic acids to the plants. So you can use it along with certain chemical fertilizers, and it reduces the damage to the crops by pathogens. It inhibits the growth of the weeds. Then even in arid regions, म्हणजे जिथे सुपीक सॉइल नसेल किंवा ड्राय रिजन्स असेल तिथे पण ते खूप उपयोगी असतं अझोस्पिरिलम. Then it reduces the humic acid toxicity in compost. So compost contains a lot of humic acid and it will reduce the toxicity of humic of the compost by reducing humic acid, and that is why it is very useful for cultivation of rice, maize, wheat, sorghum, sugar cane, and even for leguminous plants. Next one is PGPR, plant growth promoting rhizobacteria. याच्यामध्ये येतात phosphate solubilizing organisms आणि mycorrhizal biofertilizers. So phosphate solubilizing microorganisms, they are able to convert the insoluble form of phosphate which is present in the soil. So if a lot of insoluble phosphate is present in the soil, then plants cannot grow properly in that soil, and even the plants do not get the phosphates which are provided to the soil. So in that case, the insoluble form of phosphate can be converted by such bacteria to soluble form, and by solubilizing the phosphate, it can provide the plants with those phosphates as biofertilizers, and it can also help in the growth of the crops. So many organisms, they can solubilize the inorganic phosphates which are largely unavailable to the plants, and this solubilization of inorganic phosphate was first shown by Stalston, Sackett et al. And they first found it in bone meal आणि तिथे ते फॉस्फेटला solubilize करत होते. So there are various bacteria as well as fungi which can solubilize the phosphates. Normally, these phosphate solubilizing organisms are already present in the soil, but if we increase their number, then we can increase the efficiency of the soil also. So how this phosphate solubilization takes place? It takes place by production of organic acids, by chelating effect, by production of inorganic acids, by H2S production, by effect of carbon dioxide, by proton extrusion, or by siderophore production. Now, what are siderophores? Siderophores are peptides, small protein molecules which can uh, make, uh, they can fix ferric phosphate. अँड दिस फेरिक फॉस्फेट म्हणजे आयर्न फॉस्फेट, तर ते त्याच्या त्या फॉर्ममध्ये ते आयर्न पण प्लांट्सला देतात आणि फॉस्फेट पण प्लांट्सला देतात. सो सिड्रोफोर्स आर पेप्टाइड्स प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय सर्टन मायक्रो ऑर्गॅनिझम्स लाईक सुडोमोनास, एरोजिनोसा, अल्कॅलिजेन्स, असे खूप सारे सॉइलमध्ये बॅक्टेरिया आहेत जे हे छोटे छोटे पेप्टाइड्स तयार करतात आणि त्या पेप्टाइड्सच्या मदतीने सॉइलमधलं आयर्न जे आहे ते प्लांट्सला ते अवेलेबल करू शकतात. प्लस फॉस्फेट पण ते सोल्युबलाइज करू शकतात आणि ते सोल्युबलाइज फॉस्फेट प्लांट्सला मिळालं की प्लांट्सचं पण ग्रोथ चांगलं होऊ शकते. नेक्स्ट इज mycorrhiza. You know very well, mycorrhiza is an association between roots of the plants and fungi. Myco means fungus, rhiza means root. So it is an association between the roots as well as fungi. 95% of the plant species, they form mycorrhizae, and it is a very good link between a root and the soil. There are various type of mycorrhiza, and they have different structures also. Ectomycorrhiza and endomycorrhiza. So ectomycorrhiza मध्ये फंगल हायफी जे असतं, मायकोरायझा इज ॲक्च्युअली रूट आणि फंगस मधलं असोसिएशन आहे. तर हे फंगल हायफी, they form a mantle on the outer surface of the root, and within the root, in the intercellular spaces of epidermis and cortex, they will grow. Not, they won't enter inside the cells, they will enter the spaces between two cells. So intercellular spaces, epidermal cells and cortical cells जे असतात त्याच्या intercellular spaces मध्ये ते ग्रो होत असतात. So they form a thick network inside the intercellular spaces, not inside the cell but between the spaces inside the cell, outside the cell, and this thick network is not known as Hartig net. And this sheath and mantle surface of the root thereby increases because of this growth of fungal hyphae. This Hartig net, this thick network, it can store and transport, it acts as a storage part for the plant. So it can store nutrients and it can also help in the transport of nutrients. So ectomycorrhiza are very common on trees like fir, spruce, larch, then poplar, chestnut, birch. हे सगळे वुड्स आहेत, वुड्स देणारे ट्रीज आहे मोठे मोठे, तिथे हे जास्त प्रमाणात आपल्याला दिसून येतात. The fungi which form association with the roots in case of ectomycorrhiza, they come from Basidiomycotina and Ascomycotina. And normally, these include Laccaria, Pseulus, Amanita type of fungus. Rhizopogon is also there. Endomycorrhiza, these are again divided into three groups. And the most common among them is Arbuscular Mycorrhiza. So this fungi under Arbuscular Mycorrhiza belong to Endogonaceae family, and they form a thick network between the cortical cells. They extend out to the soil, and from there they absorb minerals and water and make it available to the plants. They do not form a thick network in the mantle area, पण रूट सेल्स मध्ये ते जाऊ शकतात, म्हणून एंडोमायकोरायझा. So the three types are ericoid mycorrhiza. These are found mainly in the ericaceous plants. Orchid mycorrhiza, जे orchid plants मध्ये दिसतं. Orchid are ornamental plants. आणि arbuscular mycorrhiza, usually the fungus here is Phycomycetes fungus, and this is mainly involved in the agricultural crops. There are 150 species of Arbuscular Mycorrhiza fungus, and they they germinate, they form spores, they form hyphae also. These hyphae, they can penetrate the roots of the host and they spread throughout the intercellular as well as intracellular spaces of the cortical cells. The colonization of this arbuscular fungi takes place by two phases. One is extramatrical phase and another one is intra-radical phase. The events which take place outside the root after the germination of spores, that is known as extramatrical phase. So this mycelium, they will be present almost in the soil आणि फंगल ग्रोथ हे झाल्यामुळे जवळजवळ 180 to 130 टाइम सॉरी 80 to 130 टाइम्स ते रूटची लेंथ वाढून जाईल. इतकी फंगल मायसेलिया तिथे असतील की त्या रूटची लेंथ सुद्धा आपल्याला मोठी दिसायला लागेल. This extramatrical hyphae, they are large in diameter than the inner hyphae and they help they penetrate the roots with the help of aprisorium. So this aprisorium type of spores will be formed. They can also form the resting spores in the soil. Then the intra-radical phase, events of intra-radical phase, they occur inside the root cortex. हे सगळं soil part मध्ये होतं. In एक्स्ट्रामॅट्रिकल आणि इंट्रारेडिकल कॉर्टिकल रिजन मध्ये होतं. तिथे मग इंट्रासेल्युलर आणि इंटरसेल्युलर हायफी स्प्रेड होतात. आर्बस्कल्स छोटे छोटे तयार करतात, वेसिकल्स तयार करतात, म्हणून आपण त्याला आर्बस्क्युलर मायकोरायझा असं म्हणत असतो. Arbuscles are the first formed structures after the entry of the hyphae into the cortical cells. So these arbuscles are dichotomously branched, eka branch varti दोन hyphal filaments which look like trees. So after penetration, once the hyphae of the mycorrhiza, they enter the cortical cells, after 2 days the arbuscles are formed. They are very short lived, 4 to 13 days, and then they disintegrate or degenerate. Then vesicles are also formed. After the formation of arbuscles, some fungi, they also form vesicles in the roots, and these vesicles, they are formed at the terminal part of the hyphae. These vesicles, they contain lipid and cytoplasm. They store a lot of phosphate, and these can also accumulate lots of phosphate and provide it as a nutrient to the plants. Mechanism of action. So this WAM fungi, vesicular arbuscular mycorrhiza, they provide nutrients like phosphorus, zinc, copper, potassium, sulfur and ammonia. They also provide nutrients from the soil to the plants. They protect the roots of the host against plant pathogens. They improve the absorption of water. लेक्चर सुरू होते. आहेत का खाली? थँक्यू. बाय. नंतर सलाइनिटी, हेवी मेटल पोल्युटेड जर सॉइल असतील, सलाइन सॉइल असतील, तर ते तिथे सुद्धा त्या सॉइलला ते त्याची क्वालिटी इम्प्रूव्ह करतात. देन दे आर ऑल्सो युजफुल फॉर growing these orchids. These are the ornamental plants. This is all why it can absorb a lot of phosphorus. It can also provide resistance against diseases. So these mycorrhizae, they form a thick mycelial mat around the roots, and these have high levels of phenols. So these phenols, they will provide resistance to the roots of the plants against the fungal pathogens. These fungal pathogens will synthesize certain hydrolytic enzymes, आणि त्याच्या अगेन्स्ट हे फिनॉल्स ऍक्ट होत असतात. So mycorrhizal infection also stimulates the synthesis of phytoalexins. तुमचं WAM फंजाईचं बाजारात मिळणारं पॅकेट. सो हिअर वी फिनिश्ड विथ द सिलेबस ऑफ SEC. तुम्हाला काही डिफिकल्टी असेल तर विचारा. संध्याकाळपर्यंत मी तुमचे नोट्स तुम्हाला पाठवून देईन. ओके, सो यू कॅन प्रिपेअर अकॉर्डिंगली फॉर this part of SEC. Is it okay? Shall I stop?